Hello, everyone, and welcome to University of Rhode Island Computer Science and Statistics. In today's lesson, I am going to show you how to download and install your Windows Server 2019. In addition to showing you how to download Windows Server 2019, I am also going to show you how to actually get all of the software that you are going to need using the new Microsoft Azure store. Okay. Once you have successfully followed the email that we sent you and the documentation, go to log in to your account and you should see something that looks similar to this. So you want to make sure you're on the software or that it says education-software. From here, you will be able to go to software and really get all the software that you need that Microsoft has to offer. And if you want to be very particular, you can actually just come into search and write Windows Server. And you should get access to all the different Windows Server that Microsoft has, 2019, 2016, etc. So you can actually search. You can do it by product category, depending on what it is that you're looking for. But you want to make sure that you have access to the software tab that's available here. And as the course goes on, we will talk a little bit about all of these functionalities and what Microsoft Azure essentially is. So from there, you will click on your Windows Server 2019. And you would get your Windows Server 2019 page that's going to populate, that's going to look like this. You can click on download to download the server. As you can see, my server is downloading right here. I'm going to cancel it, all right? And then I could click on view key in order to generate and view the key that I am going to need for my Windows Server 2019. From there, I would do the following. I am going to go and actually set up my Windows Server 2019. So here's my ISO for my Windows Server 2019. I'm going to go through the process of installing and setting up Windows Server 2019. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to select New Virtual Machine, and I'm going to select a typical install. I'm going to click Next, and I'm going to select an install of this image, which is the Windows Server 2019, and I'm going to browse for it. And on my desktop, you're going to notice that I have the Windows Server 2019 available. I'm going to click Open. From there, you will notice that you're going to get a message that says could not detect which operating system is into this. That does not matter. Do not worry yourself about that because that's really not important. And that's going to happen depending on the type of software you installed on your VM. Sometimes the virtual machines can detect them. Other times they can't, but the virtual machine is sophisticated enough where it will download and install this machine for us. I'm going to click Next, and I'm going to make sure I have Microsoft Windows selected. The version right now by default, if you go through, you will notice there's no option for the Server 2019. That's fine. Again, we can write this in. Again, don't concern yourself with that. I'm going to click Next, and I can change the machine name. I'm going to write Windows Server 2019. I'm going to do education, right? Because I'm using it for educational purposes. I'm going to click Next. And then I'm going to store it virtual disk as a single file. I'm going to leave the default 60 gigs. The recommended size for Windows 10 is 60 gigs, but we're using Windows Server 2019. So let's actually, what we can do is we can go back and select Windows Server 2016 if, that makes you feel better. But again, it doesn't really matter, okay? Then we're going to click Next. And again, you're going to see the recommended size for Windows Server is 2016 is 60 gigabytes. Again, as long as you have the most updated Windows, they all follow the same protocol as far as recommended gigs. So I selected Windows Server 2016 because that's the latest one that's available. But that is perfectly fine because you notice that I wrote Windows Server 2019, and that's what's going to show up in my VM. I'm going to click Next, Next, and I'm going to go to Customize to make sure that everything looks good. And this may be a part that you might want to make sure you do just to be safe. So by default, I need at least 2 gigabytes of RAM. That's free and available. If you do not have that, you will not be able to run Windows Server 2019 successfully. You want to have at least 1 processor assigned. And then you want to make sure where it says new CD/DVD, you go to browse and you point directly to your Windows Server 2019 ISO, just like I did here. Then I'm going to click Open. All right, and that's all that I'm going to do. Then I'm going to close this and I'm going to click Finish. And my Windows Server 2019 is now available for me to turn on. So I'm going to maximize my screen and I'm going to power on this virtual machine, right? And by default, once it loads, you're going to get a message that's going to say press any key to boot or load from the DVD. So you want to make sure that you do that, just like I am here. So I'm pressing enter, right, to boot from it. And if you get this message that pops up, you can just wait. But in my case, I missed it. I didn't press it. So I'm just going to restart my machine because I didn't press enter. So you want to make sure, again, that you press enter while it's loading. So my VM is loading. And when you press enter, it's going to load from the DVD/CD ISO. So right now, you notice that my Windows Server 2019 is loading and up and running. And then it will take me through the steps of what I need to do to install it, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I'm going to click next, and I'm going to select install to start installing and setting up my Windows Server 2019, right? And then it's going to say the product key looks like the following. If I don't have, again, you don't really need a product key to get this started because you can enter the product key later on. Yeah, I showed you where to get it, so you can paste your product key here if you have it. If you do not have it, you can just select I don't have a product key and continue the download, all right? And it will work perfectly fine. One of the other things you want to make sure that you do is that you understand which operating system of the server that you're selecting. If you select Windows Server 2019 Standard, that's perfectly fine. But notice that that version does not provide you with the desktop experience. What it's going to provide you with is with a command line. If you are comfortable using PowerShell in the command line, you can go ahead and set up your Windows Server 2019 using the standard. If you prefer a desktop experience because you like the user interface, then you can select Windows Server 2019 desktop experience. I recommend you download the standard because for testing purposes. Okay, now I'm going to click next. All right, make sure you select the desktop experience because if you don't, then you're going to get the command line. I'm going to select I accept the license terms next. I'm going to select custom, and I'm going to make sure I have my hard drive selected, and then I'm going to click next. And from here, I will start to download and set up my Windows Server 2019, right? And you notice that the process is the same as downloading the Windows Server 2012 video. There's really not much of a difference except that there are some of the common things that you do not see that does appear. Again, you don't really need it. I think the trial version, if you don't use your key, is available to you, I think, for 60 to 90 days. So you actually have more than enough time to utilize it. And if you want to put it into testing, use it for testing purposes or testing services, again, education licenses are not designed for production, then you can add the key to it to use it for testing purposes, right? Again, you do not need the key to get this up and running. Once this is done, you will basically have access to a fully functional Windows Server 2019. Thank you for watching. Once you have successfully downloaded and installed your Windows Server 2019, you're going to get this screen here. So I'm going to create my password for my administrator account. And hold on. And it's going to finalize my settings and get started for me, right? So now I will be able to log into my Windows Server 2019, and I am now all set and ready to go utilizing my Windows Server 2019. And if you have a screen that looks small like my screen does here, that's because we need to go and install our VMware tools. So your VMware tools really gives you a lot of the functionality that you may not see available right now. So I'm going to right click on my Windows Server 2019. I'm going to install my VMware tools so that way I can maximize my screen and get all the benefits that VMware essentially has to offer. Okay, so this is my server manager that's loading up right now. If I click on local server, you will notice that I have my local server all set and ready to go. I'm going to X this out because I don't really have a need for it. You notice I don't really have too many notifications that's available. Let's see here. All set. Let me just try to reinstall. My VMware tools is downloading. I just have to be patient. All right. And if I want to test to see if this is exactly what I need, I can come in here. I see my server managers available, my Windows PowerShell, and then I can just type in this PC to take a look at what I am actually running. And indeed, I have a Windows Server 2019, 2 gigs of RAM, 64-bit operating system. Okay, so those are the steps that you will need to take in order to successfully download and install your Windows Server 2019 to get started with this week's assignment. Thank you for watching.